What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blueblood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So we have an old school, old-fashioned Western standoff that's involving undefeated 3-division world champion, former junior welterweight undisputed world champion, currently the reigning WBO, World Boxing Organization welterweight world champion, who is widely considered by many to be the #1 best pound-for-pound fighter in the world, in Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford is 38 wins, no losses, no draw, 29 big wins by way of knockout. He is 34 years of age, 5'8" with a 74-inch arm reach, and PBC, Premier Boxing Champion, founder and advisor Al Haymon, and Showtime President of Sports, Stephen Espinoza. We have an old-fashioned Western standoff, and nobody wants to budge. Nobody wants to pull the trigger. Nobody wants to come off their square. Involving Terence Crawford and the biggest fight, the biggest rival of his career, in undefeated unified 3-belt WBC, IBF, WBA, welterweight, world champion, superstar boxer, ERROL the True Spence Jr., who is widely considered by many top 2, if not the #1 best pound-for-pound fighter in the world, with a record of 28 wins, no losses, no draw, 22 wins by way of knockout, 32 years of age, 5'9.5" with a 72-inch arm reach. Old school standoff, right? And many people believe it's between ERROL Spence and Terence Crawford. ERROL Spence is not trying to budge. Well, that's not the case at all. In fact, it's Terence Crawford and the powers that be behind the scenes, the network and the promotional company. Well, the PBC is a advisory company, right? But ERROL Spence, we know, is signed to the PBC. And so we have ourselves an old-fashioned Western standoff. Who's going to budge first? Everybody's twinkling their fingers. Who's going to give first? Who's going to budge first? Who has more to lose? And Terence Crawford is trying to use his already lasting accomplishments, career accomplishments, as a bit of leverage, because he's saying, I don't need this fight for my legacy. I'm already a Hall of Famer. We know that your fighter, ERROL Spence, is on record saying that he wants to become undisputed. That's his goal at welterweight, okay? And they have the last piece of the puzzle in that WBO title, right? And so, again, like I said, we have ourselves an old-fashioned Western standoff. Who's going to budge first? The thing is, the PBC, they know that ERROL Spence has options to make big legacy fights. The problem with the PBC is that they know that ERROL Spence, what ERROL Spence wants. And Terence Crawford knows what ERROL Spence wants. ERROL Spence wants that WBO title, okay? He wants to become undisputed. ERROL Spence is not in the business of leaving the welterweight division without accomplishing the goals that he set forth. ERROL Spence is you can tell that ERROL Spence is a person that sets a goal and accomplishes it, right? He don't like to set a goal and leave things unaccomplished. He did everything he said he was going to do up until this point. And ERROL Spence, he wants that WBO title for historic reasons, right? Not just because Terence Crawford has it and it's his biggest rival. It has become his biggest rival, and it's the biggest fight in boxing between himself and Terence Crawford. It just happened to be Terence Crawford because ERROL Spence wants that WBO title, because historically he'll be the first undisputed 4 major sanction belt holder in the welterweight division in the 4-belt era in the history of sport of boxing. He don't want to leave that stone unturned. He wants to accomplish that. Terence Crawford is using it as leverage. Well, the PBC is using Terence Crawford's lack of options as leverage for them, because what direction does Terence Crawford go in? He'll be 35 next month. September, Terence Crawford will be 35 years of age. Time is not on his side, and the PBC, they know that Terence Crawford is already on record as well, stating that he don't want to fight late into his 30s. Well, September 28th of next month, okay, 1 month, just about, we're going on 1 month. Today's the 26th of August. So we're just about a month away to the exact date of Terence Crawford becoming 35 years of age, already stating that he has no interest in becoming a fighter that's fighting late into his 30s and 40s. So with that said, they're using that as leverage, you know, to see if Terence Crawford gonna budge. The problem is time waits for nobody. Time is not on nobody's side. Well, Al Haymon and Stephen Espinoza not getting in the ring. So it doesn't resonate with them as much as it does the actual fighters, because it's not their legacy. It's not their accomplishments. It don't hurt them one way or another. They're gonna make money if they convince Errol Spence to fight former unified welterweight world champion superstar boxer Keith one-time Thurman. Well, guess what? They're gonna make money off it. They're in the business of making money. Now, this is the entertainment business for them. It's legacy for Errol Spence and Terence Crawford. It's entertainment for them as well, but their legacy is hindering on this fight happening. Al Haymon's legacy is already set in stone before he even got in the sport of boxing. He was a legend in his own lane, in his own right, for what he does as a businessman in an entertainment and music business. Stephen Espinoza and Showtime, well, that speaks for itself. So they know the fighters are against the wall, and the fact that Terence Crawford is no longer with legendary promoter, top-ranked CEO and promoter Bob Arum and ESPN, he doesn't have much leverage. We already know Matchroom CEO and promoter Eddie Hearn and DAZN already said they have no interest in dealing with Terence Crawford because simply they don't have the fighters to offer Terence Crawford to make fights happen. Well, he was already at top rank and he's not there anymore. So where does Terence Crawford go from here? Because he would need to go back to top rank, or he would need to go to PBC to be able to secure any fights. People talk about Terence Crawford possibly fighting against former undefeated British superstar lightweight, junior welterweight, undisputed world champion, Josh Taylor. Well, Josh Taylor's with top rank. Josh Taylor's with top rank. Okay, so people talk about Terence Crawford fighting, you know, a fight with undefeated Mexican superstar welterweight title contender, Virgil Ortiz Jr. Well, Virgil Ortiz is with Oscar De La Hoya, Golden Boy Promotions, and DAZN. So he would need to go to DAZN and convince DAZN to give him the money he's looking for. And clearly, it's about the money. And as I told you guys, it's a retirement plan for Terence Crawford. Why do you say that, Blue? Well, Sean Porter just confirmed it. Sean Porter let you know that he has a very close relationship with Terence Crawford. Right? So clearly, he stated that he asked Terence Crawford on the Porterweight podcast, well, before they started their Porterweight podcast interview, what questions would you like me to ask or not to ask for my panel? Right? Because he has a whole panel. So he didn't want the panel to ask him questions that's going to put him in a bind or that he can't answer or going to be uncomfortable answering. So Sean Porter, at the end of that, stated that he's well into his right, that being Crawford, to demand a certain amount of money, a certain number, and once PBC get that number right, they'll come back to him and it'll get done for a fight of this magnitude, because it's a very risky fight. Now, keep in mind that Sean Porter said this is a very risky fight, and you know, Terence Crawford is, nobody should get mad at Terence Crawford for asking for the numbers that he's looking for to stage this fight. Well, that lets you know that the number that they came forth with is not correct in the eyes of Terence Crawford. Right? Okay. On top of that, right? Now you got to look at it from this standpoint. Sean Porter is also very, very close with Al Haymon himself and his father, Kenny Porter, father trainer manager. Close relationship with Al Haymon, right? So clearly he knows what's going on behind the scenes. So for Sean Porter to say the number ain't right, well, Sean Porter knows it's about money. And so, like I told you guys before, Terence Crawford understands the risk versus the reward. He understands the magnitude of this fight. This is a massive fight. It's a huge fight, right? He understands that this is a huge fight. He understands that a lot of money will be made for the powers that be behind the scenes in staging this fight. and he knows that he's the one putting it all on the line, and so he wants to get paid handsomely. He wants to be compensated for his services, right? Everybody wants to hold Errol Spence accountable and saying that Errol Spence needs to bend, and Errol Spence needs to be the one to, compromise and sacrifice so that this fight can happen. Well, clearly it's not Errol Spence. Clearly, Sean Porter just told you again. It's the powers that be need to come with the correct number. It has nothing to do with Errol Spence. Well, it has something to do with Errol Spence, but it's not Errol Spence directly affecting this fight from not happening. So, Terence Crawford knows that he's in the bind. He's in a squeeze. He knows that he's in a squeeze. He's in a bind. And he knows that time is not on his side. But on the flip side of that, Terence Crawford also knows that this is a massive fight and he deserves to be paid handsomely. The fans are the ones suffering, as Terence Crawford stated. Terence Crawford has adopted the mindset that regardless how this situation plays out, he's good and he's in a comfortable place. He don't need it. He has convinced himself that. He's adopted the mindset that I don't need Errol Spence fight, right? I'm in a very comfortable place. I'm already a Hall of Famer. They can't take that away from me. That's the mindset he has adopted. But in the same token, he let you know that he's very aware that Errol Spence is his biggest rival, and that he'll never live it down if this fight don't come to fruition. He's aware of that. And so the problem is Terence Crawford publicly makes it known that he's aware of that. So now the powers that be understand that, oh, you aware that if this fight don't happen, you'll never be able to live it down. As Terence Crawford stated, I can't go on social media and post a normal picture with me and my children without somebody asking me about Terence Crawford. I mean, Errol Spence fight, and vice versa. The difference is he's the holder and Errol Spence is not. So now that he's saying what he said, right? The public knows that Errol Spence is not holding up the fight. It's on his end. Errol Spence don't control what Al Haymon and Showtime, the networks, offer the fighters. He can't control that. He can't. There's nothing Errol Spence can do about that. He could take a split, but if the pot ain't right for the money that Terence Crawford is looking for, well, that's out of the hands of Errol Spence. Ain't nothing he can do about it. And so now the public knows, as Errol Spence stated before, if this fight don't happen, it ain't my fault. It ain't on my end. And now the public has seen it and heard it. So we have a good old-fashioned Western standoff between Terence Crawford and Al Haymon. Who's going to budge first? Hopefully they both budge first and we get this fight. And that's all I got for y'all. Make sure you hit the like button. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button. Hit the bell icon to get all the new notifications. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. Y'all already know what it is. Shout out to the entire LDBC. Shout out to Black Media Roll. Make sure you like your shitty videos. That's all I got for y'all. Peace.